Are we okay?
Yes, she's on.
Yep.
Welcome to the Waterville Valley Conservation Commission. Today is Wednesday, September 18th. And we'll do a roll call, starting with Mr. Hastings.
Charles Hastings, member.
Rebecca Hastings, member.
Jenny Lucas, member.
North Dakota Town Manager.
Paul Ricotta, alternate. Rich Rita, I'm here to represent Select Board on one of the agenda items.
Garrett Levy, member.
John Shane member.
Cindy Pecos,
Welcome.
member.
Yes.
Full house.
So
Good.
Patrick Moore is not here. Is there anyone on Zoom? Would we see if there's anyone on Zoom? Okay.
Okay.
So no one's here. Okay. All right, so Jenny, just do an aside before I forget. Patrick Moore was here for July 3rd. You got that? Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah, I thought that was,
Yeah. Let's do a little rearrangement and go right to the discussion on the 13 acres.
You want to,
Mhm.
yeah, let's do the minutes first.
That's all. You want to do that? Okay, we'll do it quickly then.
Yeah.
So the minutes of July 3, were there any questions, edits?
correction, that one was okay, it was the 19th.
So let's have a motion for July 3.
Move to approve the minutes of July 3rd.
A second,
I'll second that.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And for August 19th?
I have a question about, small details down at the bottom of the page, White Mountain Place Condo Association, did someone catch that? It's Waterville. Is that
I knew that wasn't right.
I missed it.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, I just caught it last night.
What number?
It's,
I saw it, but I didn't know about that.
White Mountain Place.
Okay, so Waterville Place.
Yeah, Waterville Place.
Okay.
And I had a question about the definition of forebay. I thought he was saying foredam. No.
It's a 4-day or retention base.
Got it.
Either.
Yeah, I knew what it was called or what it was, the definition, but I somehow wrote something else down, so, but, okay,
That,
I'm happy.
all right, any other, well, Cindy, everything good? Good. All right, do we have a motion?
Back on your turn.
It's my turn, okay, I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
All right. So now we'll go to old business and we'll go to number 3, number 4, before we go to number 1. How's that? All right, this is for you, Mr. Rich.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so we'll have a discussion on the acquisition for the 13.5 acreage. So the select board wants, eventually, they want a letter from us regarding.
I'm for it. I mean, I'm not sure,
We-
the only reasons against it came up at town meeting when there were
Mhm.
some worries about the possibility of contamination. And I think that the town has addressed this,
Yes,
so I feel no reluctance
all
of
right,
accepting 13.5 acres.
I think the other issue was the money. People were,
Right.
it was only by 1-2 votes and we're not sure which way people were thinking.
right.
yeah,
So this time it's free.
it's a gift.
Well,
Yeah.
$1, I think. $1.50.
Oh, don't worry, I'll cover the.
$1.99.
for the-
Let us know. I can come up with quarters.
Yeah.
Not my bingo.
But the 21E situation, as long as that land is not disturbed and it won't be impacted by like 200-year storm washing onshore, it won't disrupt anything because of the debris is that far down.
We don't know. We will have to negotiate. I think Rich is actually here to address those
Mhm.
kinds of questions
Okay.
and let
Okay,
you know what the board has talked about.
yeah,
Mhm.
those are my concerns.
Okay, so thanks again, everybody. I'm here because the relevant RSA that governs this donation is RSA 4114-A. And it requires a letter of recommendation from a number of boards, town boards, to the select board. The recommendation could be, we do not recommend, but you are required to send a letter with regard to the select board's intent to, in this case, we've preliminarily agreed to accept a donation. So we're moving down that path. And the other board in town that is required to send us a letter or an email, just something in writing for the record. It was the planning board, and we discussed it at the last planning board meeting. And they voted to support the select board's decision to accept the donation. 4114A lays out the whole process. We have to have 2 public hearings where we make a decision. There are time intervals involved, and there's another time interval after the second public hearing. So I apologize, we had to move the dates around the last month or so, but the first public hearing is next Thursday at 3 p.m. I believe it is, on the
Yep.
26th. And we'll be making a presentation to the public to just get the input after our presentation. It's not our intent really to engage in a back and forth at that point, the first public hearing. We just want to hear what people say, what questions or concerns they have, so that we can go back as a board and discuss it again, and then come to the second public hearing, which I believe is on the 10th of October at 6 p.m. Where we will again, we'll address any earlier concerns raised, and we will again ask for people to give us their views. We'll probably have a little bit more of a back and forth. I mean, this is the plan anyway. At that point, because that second public hearing would be the second and last public hearing. And we have to hold the vote no earlier than 7 and no later than 14 days
Okay.
after that second public hearing. So probably the following week, given the timeline that we're hoping to pursue here, would be the vote. If we were to do it, probably, I guess it would be at our regular select board meeting
Mhm.
will be the one we would have the vote, because that falls, I think, 7 days.
It's between
8
the
days.
7
It's
and
between the
14.
7 and the 14.
Okay.
So that's the process. So that's why I'm here, just to let you guys know. By next week, we need in writing from you, as I said, either email or
Right.
just a letter with your view, with
Okay.
your view recommendation as to whether the select board should go ahead and accept the land. And now I can answer any specific questions you might have, all of which obviously we'll be talking about we've talked about before, but we'll be talking about specifically addressing at the 2 public hearings.
Which
That's
I
it
have
in a
a
nutshell.
question,
Mhm.
if you could clarify it up
Mhm.
for us.
Mhm.
Being in the planning board, a lot of questions have come up in regards to the waste that's on that land and who may or may not be responsible. Can you elaborate on that? Because my understanding is no matter which way we go, the valley is responsible.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is I'm looking for the actual language that our legal firm, we hired both an environmental engineering firm to do a phase 1 study of the property. And that really is essentially a documents review process, go through the records of the state and wherever else to see what the actual, oh, thank you, what the actual status of the property was, and our environmental engineer, yes, I want it. Our environmental engineer, concluded that, we fit the description of a pre-1981 town dump. And he was able to dig up documents, even though there's very little in town records. That we're talking basically the 1960s, I believe, more than anything else, because it appeared to have been closed in 1970, thereabouts. But it was used as a town dump. It was not town-owned property. It was owned by the Waterville Company. So that's one potential responsible entity. But the town dump, the town was operating what, for all intents and purposes, was a town dump slash incineration area. I mean, they both buried and burnt material there for a number of years. So the town was operating a dump. And it's been in the Waterville Company since then. The only other party that could be a party to having to do something about this, and we'll come on to that, is the current owner. So the documents show that we were operating a town dump. So we provide, and we also did a preliminary soil assessment. We did not do yet a phase 2 investigation. That's probably going to be required by the state. But we wanted to wait on that expense just to get a better sense of where we may be going with this. And the preliminary soil assessment, I think there were 18 test pits that were dug. Again, this was under the town assisted with this, but it was under the supervision of the environmental engineering firm, and they conducted their studies, and they found the actual document is on the town website. I don't know if anyone has seen it.
No.
It's there. It's a public document. Monadnock Environmental Consultants.
And how do we find it on the town?
It's,
I'm not sure. Yeah, but if you go into the search bar and just put in
I would just.
Monadnock, maybe.
Yeah, either a land donation.
Land donation, you should probably eventually. That's what I do it. I eventually stumble on it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's under the planning board, if it's under the
Yeah.
select board, but
Okay.
it's,
Okay.
it
But we
is,
can
there is
search
a
it.
link
Mhm.
or a PDF of
Yeah, of
both the
of
phase
doc-
1
Phase
formal
1,
report and the preliminary soil.
And these 18 test pits, was that part of phase 1?
No, so before, our next step was either to do this preliminary soil assessment or go to a phase 2, and a phase 2
It's much more
is
expensive.
much more expensive. But a preliminary soil assessment was only, I think, a few $1,000s to get that
We
done.
used the town equipment and crew to assist the consultants
And just to give us an idea, because, there was,
to dig the holes.
no one really had a solid idea. I mean, we've all heard stories of things that were thrown in there and people seeing things or heard things. So, that was the preliminary soil assessment, and that's also,
In that report?
it's
On the link, it's also a PDF document.
right.
Okay.
It was a
They gave us
separate report.
report.
Because that came after the phase 1. But you can see on there, they found any number of metals, chemicals and whatnot. None of which, I think, except for one high, barely over the limit methane reading that was over
In one hole.
in one hole that was over the state limit for those metals, materials, chemicals.
Question I have, I don't mean to interrupt, but
Mhm.
how far back I haven't been, so how far back from the water is this dump site? How many feet
There-
did you say?
They did the 18 test pits.
Yep.
Are spread out over the entirety of the property.
The
So
yeah,
the majority are
Get
at
mine.
the
do this the right way. Here we go.
northern end.
Most of it was, so what was found was primarily municipal solid waste, trash bags.
Okay.
And the area that most of it was found was in here. It's that cleared area, when you first come in
Yeah,
off West
yeah.
Branch Road on the left, have that big cleared area.
Mm.
Most of it was here, and there was some over in this way, and there was a little bit of pockets anyway, but it looks like this was the
Hmm.
the main site. I don't think there may have been a little on the other side of Mike's Dream downriver a bit, but
And this
Yeah.
was just to get a general
Yeah.
sense
Right.
of what it was.
right.
The phase two, which we will have to do.
You will
whether
have
Almost
to do.
certainly the state's gonna
whether it-
require us.
We're gonna request not to, but
Yeah,
we will probably lose that. We will probably have to do that.
yeah,
There will be a grid and they will do borings, very formal.
Sampling.
And analysis of the samples and all of that.
More-
so
more
the question I
yeah.
have is that if you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, your second phase, where was this methane located on that
It
map?
was located down on the West Branch Road end of the property. Down in here.
Okay, so it is close to the water.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
Okay.
and the methane is just an indicator that there were
Organic
organic material was
gases building.
dropped
Yeah.
there. And again, it was not, even though it exceeded the state
Limit.
level
Mhm.
sampling level,
Uh-huh.
it was not at the point where we would have to, in the estimation of the environmental consultants,
Mhm.
have to put in a reclamation system.
Okay,
or-
good.
It's not, now, the phase two, who
We
knows,
don't-
right? I
Hopefully you
mean,
won't have to
hopefully
address it.
we won't have to do it, but their reasoning to the board was, no, we're probably not looking at that.
Okay,
And that's why we will pursue a pre-1981 clean fill cap process.
and what
Because
is
that has no
Mark?
no reclamation of
Mhm.
anything. No gas capturing system or
Mhm.
anything of a
Just a cap.
regular landfill cap. You simply put clean fill on to whatever depth
Mhm.
DES instructs, usually
2
2 to
feet.
3 feet. We have some spots where the material is a few inches under, and we have other areas where it's 6 feet down. So,
Okay.
our intent is to start discussions with DES as soon as possible. And start talking to them about what the requirements will be
Okay.
moving forward.
This approach was recommended by both the engineering firm, the environmental engineering firm, and the law firm, which specializes in this sort of issue, old landfills.
Yeah.
And they both concluded separately from each other, and then we talked among all of us that we would almost certainly be classified as a pre-1981 town unlined landfill, i.e. town dump, of which there were hundreds, of
That would
course.
be a good thing, yeah.
That'll
That
be
would,
good.
that would be
Yeah,
good, because
absolutely.
then all we would be required to do potentially is the clean fill that Mark talked about. Now, how the extent of that clean fill, whether it's over the whole 13.5 acres, let's hope not, or just over the areas where the
There isn't
material,
2 feet.
there isn't 2 feet.
Yeah.
So, the bottom line is that, well, let me give you the legal bottom line. So that's where we were at, and, we had a better feel for what was there and what we were faced with. So, basically, what the law firm said is that we are what will be considered a potentially responsible party, a PRP. The Waterville Company as well, it would probably be a potentially responsible party, as is the current owner. In the case of the town, according to our council, none of the traditional defenses to avoid being responsible and having to clean it up are available to us. We were operating a town dump, an unlined town dump. It was pretty obvious. It wasn't our land, but we were operating it. So, of those 3 entities, it's likely the burden will fall, if not exclusively, then almost exclusively on the town for any remediation. And this is the bottom line. If the town owns the property, and we go to the state and we tell them that, look, we're not going to allow any development here. We're going to use it, it's zone recreational. We're going to keep it that way. I mean, by any development, I mean, structures that require foundations. I mean, maybe we want to put in a field someday. In other words, not really disturb the property.
No
Keep it,
soil disruption.
just keep it pretty much as is.
Mhm.
And be up to future town meetings and select boards to decide what they wanted to spend the money for. If they want to spend any money for whatever else they wanted to do on that land. That we would be able to work a deal with DES for this clean 2-foot clean fill option.
Mhm.
But it's likely that the state is going to require us to do a phase 2. We'll just have to see how that plays out. And we've already using our engineering firm started to put out informal feelers at the state level just to see, if we're moving down the right path. I mean, are we where we want to be? Does this make a lot of sense? And if we own the property, we could do that. It won't be cheap, depending upon how much we need to do. It could run $200,000 for that complete clean cap, maybe more. I mean, because you got to truck all this stuff in, right? And you can imagine the disturbance and a lot of that will have to be cut down all the trees and all that's potentially in the cards going down this path. Obviously, we're going to argue for something less intrusive, yeah, damaging, intrusive. Just let it be.
Exactly.
However, if a third party were to acquire the property, it is zone recreation. If they did their due diligence, they'd find out immediately that the town was a potential responsible party, and the town would be would be the responsible party for cleaning up whatever they wanted to do. So if they wanted to dig, and put in something like a foundation, and we wouldn't be talking just putting on a clean cap. We'd be talking, have to pay for it, digging all that stuff out, shipping it out. So it would be much more expensive, at least certainly this is what the lawyer is saying. Prevent a third party from owning and developing the property and limit exposure to paying or reimbursing that owner for potential remediation costs given the town's prior use of the property. That was kind of the firm's bottom line, that
that's the biggest protection. Yeah. We are in a much better place to negotiate with DES the cost of the clean fill cap as
and the
the owner
timing
of the property and the timing of that. Maybe we can push it off 5-10 years. Who knows? Right? Or we can get it reduced, instead of all 13 acres, say there's 4 acres.
right, the
that,
one big area in
the big
particular, or where
area,
this
whatever
material
they,
is.
but we, at least as the owners, are negotiating, and being able to tell DES that, our plan is for light recreational use of this property, not to disturb it. And in fact, if you'll let us do it, we won't cut anything down or dig any holes.
Right.
We'll just continue to use it the way it's being used right now.
And
for
where,
light recreational use. Probably they're not going to
They're gonna want a
let
little
us
bit more.
go that way. They're gonna want a little more,
Phase
but
2.
at least it isn't, hey, you gotta dig up this 5 acres of property